In the shadowed corners of Washington, D.C., a story unfolded that blended passion, betrayal, and cold-blooded violence. A man once respected was consumed by obsession and jealousy that twisted into rage. What began as a fractured marriage soon spiraled into a chain of chilling events that shocked the city. Neighbors whispered, investigators searched for answers, and the truth became darker with every detail uncovered. This is not just the story of one man's crime. It is a terrifying reminder of how love, when poisoned by anger, can turn into an unstoppable nightmare. Real crimes are more terrifying than any ghost story. They are born from the darkest corners of the human mind, where greed, rage, and obsession twist into acts beyond imagination. In this channel, we dive deep into these chilling true events, unmasking the truth that hides in the shadows. If you have a passion for real crime stories, subscribe and join our growing community. Don't forget to click the bell button for more real-life crime stories. Frederick Defrouville, born around 1850, lived a seemingly ordinary life as a clerk in the Department of Agriculture. On the surface, he appeared to be a man of responsibility and stability, holding a respectable government position in Washington, D.C. His wife, Andrea Marie Wollstrip Defrouville, was also employed within the same department, working as a translator. Together, they represented a couple who had integrated well into the capital's professional class. Yet beneath this facade, tensions had been brewing for years. Andrea Defrouville had emigrated from Denmark in 1871, carrying with her ambition, intelligence, and a strong network of connections. Through her association with Senator Benjamin Harvey Hill, she secured her translator's position. Before that, she had worked in the dead letters office of the post office, a role she gained thanks to her ties with the former U.S. consul in Denmark. These accomplishments reflected her drive and resourcefulness, but also drew attention, admiration, and perhaps envy. Her successes, unfortunately, became entangled with the personal insecurities of her husband. Frederick's family background tied him to figures of prominence and controversy alike. His father, also named Frederick Defrouville, had emigrated from France in the 1840s, embedding the family within American society. More notably, Frederick was related by marriage to Aaron Van Camp, a Confederate spy during the Civil War. This connection carried a certain notoriety, casting the family in the shadow of espionage and rebellion. Whether these ties influenced Frederick's sense of identity or pride remains unclear, but his life would soon unravel into tragedy. By 1883, Frederick and Andrea's marriage was deeply fractured. Reports suggested that marital infidelity, or at least the suspicion of it, lay at the heart of their troubles. Andrea, admired for her intellect and poise, interacted frequently with colleagues and acquaintances, which may have stoked Frederick's jealousy. Whispers of mistrust began to poison their household. For Frederick, pride and insecurity built into a toxic storm. Andrea's life beyond her husband offered her recognition and respect. She was skilled in languages, which made her invaluable as a translator in the Department of Agriculture. She also taught German lessons, sharing her knowledge with younger learners. One of these students was an 18-year-old neighbor, whom she tutored privately. It was during one of these ordinary lessons that the extraordinary and deadly confrontation took place. On April 4, 1883, Frederick entered the home where Andrea was teaching. He carried with him a revolver, his mind clouded with anger, jealousy, and despair. Without warning, he confronted Andrea in front of her young pupil. In a fit of rage, he raised the weapon and shot his wife. The brutal act shocked everyone who would later hear of it, tearing apart not just their lives, but the peace of their community. Andrea collapsed, gravely wounded, as her student watched in horror. The attack left no time for aid or escape. Frederick, perhaps realizing the finality of what he had done, turned the gun upon himself. A second gunshot rang out, ending his own life. In moments, a scene of learning and language had become one of blood and silence. The young student, traumatized, became an unwilling witness to the carnage. News of the murder-suicide spread rapidly through Washington. Residents were horrified that such an act could occur within their government community. Officials and workers who knew the couple expressed shock, recalling them as educated and well-placed individuals. But whispers of Frederick's growing jealousy now seemed like grim warnings ignored. Authorities quickly investigated, holding an inquest to piece together the sequence of events. Witness testimony confirmed that Andrea had been tutoring her young neighbor when Frederick appeared. The gun he used left little doubt as to his intent. This was no accident, but a deliberate crime of passion. Jealousy and suspicion had driven him beyond reason. The verdict concluded that Frederick had murdered his wife before taking his own life. The tragedy raised uncomfortable questions about jealousy, domestic strife, and unchecked anger. In a city that prided itself on progress and refinement, the murder revealed the dark undercurrents of human emotion. Neighbors and colleagues debated whether Andrea had been unfairly judged for her independence. Some viewed her as a victim of success in a time when women's professional achievements could spark resentment. Frederick's insecurity had transformed into fatal violence. Andrea's body was laid to rest in Congressional Cemetery, a solemn tribute to her service and life in the Capitol. Her contributions as a translator and educator were remembered with respect. Meanwhile, Frederick's remains were interred in Glenwood Cemetery, a separate resting place. Even in death, their separation symbolized the fracture that had defined their marriage. The community mourned both the loss of Andrea's promise and the waste of Frederick's descent into darkness. The newspapers of the time reported the event with sensational detail. The notion of a government clerk committing such an act was scandalous. Readers were gripped by the story of jealousy turned to bloodshed. Reporters highlighted Andrea's ties to powerful figures like Senator Hill, contrasting her dignity with her husband's fall. The case fed the era's fascination with crime, passion, and tragedy. Frederick's act was remembered not merely as a crime, but as a cautionary tale. It revealed the peril of unchecked suspicion and the destructive power of pride. While some sought to explain his behavior through personal or family history, others condemned him outright. No explanation could undo the horror of Andrea's final moments. Her death became a symbol of the vulnerability women faced, even within their own homes. For the young neighbor who witnessed the crime, life was never the same. The memory of that day would haunt him for years, shaping his understanding of trust and safety. To witness such violence so closely left scars invisible to others. His presence in the room made him both a survivor and a reminder of the tragedy. Andrea's final act of teaching became entwined with his trauma. In the end, Frederick Defrouville's legacy was one of destruction. His actions ended not only his own life, but also that of his wife, whose potential continued to inspire colleagues and friends. The murder-suicide entered Washington's history as one of its most shocking crimes of passion. For Andrea, remembrance carried respect and sorrow. For Frederick, history recorded only shame and the devastating weight of jealousy.